anything to fear. Um, okay, we're going to be going. It's preparing to live stream. It's setting us up for YouTube Live. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone who's joining us, both here in Topeka and around the world, for our Wednesday Torah Club, where we're once again studying Kohelet. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get our Kohelet reading. We're going to begin in chapter 6 this week. And of course, we'll start with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. If you say Amen, you get full credit.
Amen.
And there you go. There you go. Okay, we're good. And okay, so we're going to continue here. Kohelet will continue to give us his observations, as this is essentially a whole record of his observations. There is an evil I have observed under the sun, yesh ra'a asher ra'iti tachar hashemesh, and a grave one, a great one, it is on mortals, on every human being. He says, v'rabahi al ha'adam. So there's a great evil I have seen, and it is widespread among it's so rabbah here, great, like we say, right? It has abundant, right? Ahava rabbah, we say in our prayers, in our morning prayers, we say great is God's love, abundant is God's, right? So it's great, large, but also, this is the semantic range of the word. And so not just is it broad in its gravity, but it's broad in its hold, in its reach. That God sometimes grants a man riches, property, and wealth, so that he does not want for anything his appetite may crave. But God does not permit him to enjoy it. Instead, a stranger will enjoy it. That is futility. This is again, we get more Havel. Are you coming in? Nope. Okay. Right? This is Havel. And a great grievous ill. So what is it saying?
Collecting goods is useless in terms of true enjoyment. Well,
I don't know.
It
could be. It's an interesting thought.
Clinging to it.
Well, just that there's no point to clinging to it, right? What he's saying, this is this great one thing that most of us will never relate to, because he's Shlomo, right? He's Shlomo HaMelech. So he's super duper ultra rich. So perhaps reading of this great evil that exists, this great unfortunateness. If you don't think it's an evil, maybe you don't relate to it, whatever. You could call it this great misfortune, that happens to some folks. And who does it happen to? This is a misfortune that affects rich folks. There are misfortunes, obviously many, he would agree, that apply to not rich people. But this is one that happens. We keep being told there are no afflictions for rich people. Interestingly, this is an affliction he's mentioning, that what it is they have so much, but they're going to not be able to use what they have, right? Most of us will have the opportunity to do what he considers to be maybe the best thing, which is to make what you need so that you can have a good life. These are people who've made so much that their own minds will eat themselves up over, their own souls will eat themselves up over having accumulated so much that they'll never ever apply, right? If I made, I don't know who, I'm Plony Ben Bezos or Plony Ben Musk, some child of some extremely rich person, and eventually I become an uber billionaire with I don't know, I'm making up terms, but with I don't know, I get $10 billion because my dad had $100 billion. Even so, I probably won't be able to spend that much money. I could go buy 20 huge houses. I could go buy a bunch of boats. I could buy a couple of planes. And I probably still wouldn't be able to spend all that money. And so this is kind of what he's, right? It's just this is one of those hevels. He's saying this is one of those things that just it, it's you might say, and again, Tevye would say if we were reading Shalom Aleichem or watching Fiddler on the Roof, may I be struck with such an affliction and never recover. Right? I mean, there are people certainly who would. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not sitting here telling you that the person you should ultimately feel most, whatever affection and empathy for is the rich is Elon Musk because he'll never spend all of his money. That's not exactly what I'm saying to you. He's not saying this is the top and ultimate thing. He is saying that it's a bad thing, though. Perhaps in contrast to the people who would say it's not a bad thing. Because he's addressing the soul crush, essentially. We've said over and over across this class that that's what he's addressing, which means he's seen, and probably since we've heard from him before but already, you remember, I'm sure, that he tried to get rid of the soul crush by being a frivolous dilettante, right? By being somebody who spends a lot of money and parties and has fun. And he found out that doesn't work. Right? So he's not saying that in fact, he's saying there's no way to get rid of that feeling by being a rich person, right? It affects both rich and poor, which makes sense. God often says that God doesn't differentiate between rich and poor. So if God was seeking to instill humanity with some form of purpose in order to not feel crushed in their soul, it makes sense that being rich would not be an escape from that.
One of our former members here has passed on, Tom Dolgoff, consulted with very rich people in business. He said, "Why are you struggling so much? You're doing great." They said, "Because others are making more." A lot of it has to do with rank ordering and competition. And they never can be satisfied because somebody always makes more.
Well, and as Kohelet has already pointed out, that the pure struggle to acquire does not not the soul. Because of that, essentially. I mean, that's boiling it down, but
you want more.
Right. That there is no end to that because the number always goes up. There is no maximum number. And so therefore someone will always, I mean, that's the way of the world. Absolutely. Anyway, so here we're gonna continue with this person that we're feeling bad for this rich guy right now. But I promise the point is so that no human being should feel that soul crush, which of course, as I said, it's good that we should recognize that it affects rich people just like it affects poor people, because God would want it to be able to equally affect everyone, not only affect poor. Like that would be insane to say it only affects poor people. Anyway, so he says, even if a man should beget 100 children and live many years, no matter how many the days of his years may come to, if his gullet is not sated through his wealth, I say, the stillbirth, though it was not even accorded a burial, is more fortunate than he. Thoughts?
The notion that life is a struggle, life is suffering, and the stillbirth is protected against that suffering. It's a very strong and shocking statement.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's meant to be, right. I think you captured that. I think it's meant to be a shocking statement. But that since this person it's impossible to tell once one dies what will happen, right? He's saying even though this person may have lived more years than most people would live and had so many more children than most people would have, if you're on that acquiring spree, if you can't find a way to be satisfied, he would have been better off not being born. Someone else should have had a better shot at it, right? It's a shocking statement. It's an aggressive statement almost. It's to the point of saying, like, you're fortunate enough to have a shot on this marble. Not everyone gets that shot. Not even every soul created by God gets that shot. But you're here. You're playing the game. You don't know if you've got 1,000 turns or 4. But you should make the most of it. So it says, like a stillborn, because it comes into Hevel and departs into Choshech, and its very name is covered with darkness.
What's Hoshech?
Darkness.
Oh, darkness.
Darkness. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing certainly with any of this. Yet I feel that these same words could come out of one of these billionaires that you're mentioning, saying those things.
Because it would make people empathize with them.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. I think God wants you to have empathy for everybody, not just people who are doing worse than you. There are parts of society today that say the only people who deserve empathy are certain people, whether you are of a certain demographic group or you're a certain net worth level. And those are the people worthy of sympathy, empathy, and care from their community. I'm not sure that's true. I think everyone deserves to be considered for the things that are. I'm not saying that we design a system that only caters to them because we should feel more empathy for them. Not at all saying that. But if there's a system that says we should feel none, now again, if they came to Congress and said, let's pass laws based on this, I would oppose that. This is wisdom literature. This is philosophy. This is helpful for me, for instance. And when I deal with congregants, I deal with people of different net worths. It's important for me to be able to empathize and sympathize with all of my congregants in the many different ways they might struggle. Even if some of them might struggle while enduring being wealthy, and some of them may struggle while enduring being impoverished. It's important, I think, to be able to understand everybody. And that doesn't mean you have to cater to them over and above. Again, God doesn't say you should favor. In fact, God says, do not show deference to the rich or really, I would say patronage to the poor, the text tells us, or that you should, show too much mercy because a poor person is poor. That's God's idea of justice. Is neither gets too much, but they both have to have some. Right? This is how we balance Deen and Rachamim. So would Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or anyone else who please doesn't sue me because this is on the internet? I love you, please. If you want to fund a synagogue, there's one in Topeka that could use it. You'd never miss it. I'm just saying. But in any event, if they came to you and said, if only riches were enough to make me happy, I would say to them, well, okay, let's talk about happy. No, I'm being serious. If they came in today and said that the proper thing would not be for me to say, well, what do you have to worry about?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the right thing. I'm sorry, I switch sometimes between being glib and serious, so I'm just reiterating that I'm being serious. My job would be to go up to them and say, well, let's talk about happiness and what it means to be happy. I might show them this, and I might say, look, there might be a better way. Perhaps with all of that extra money that you don't feel you're ever going to be able to fully appreciate, perhaps there is a investment opportunity, not necessarily for the sake of money, but for the sake of helping some industry or some group, or something that you could do to make the lives of other people better. There are endless numbers of things that kind of person possibly could do to work through these issues, because their issues are different, but they're still their issues. And so that's what I would say to them if they came and said that. I would not say to them, well, you know what, we should do more I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. You could tell me what we could be afraid of from that. We should definitely make sure that your workers don't get to use the bathroom. I wouldn't say that, but why? Who would is what I would say. These are issues. These are internal issues, and anyone might have an internal spiritual issue, whether they're a dollar heir or a billionaire. The other things are other things. They're not unimportant. They're just other things, and we're not talking about. Kohelet isn't talking about them. In any event,
I've never really thought about what they must feel like, never being satisfied and not having. I've never thought about it from that angle.
Well, no luckier than the rabbi. What we say is, okay, tell me about it. I don't quite understand.
Right.
And we don't have to make any suggestions. We listen and then follow.
I'm not supposed to make that many suggestions. I did not real in the sense of I in the therapy training I received. I don't make that many suggestions when people come to me for therapy. I try and do guidance, but not in a prescriptive
You don't sign
manner.
scripture.
No, I certainly don't sign any scripts for anyone. That's not. And if anyone needs actual psychiatric care, I refer out. I don't practice psychiatry or psychology in my
And we
my
do have
office.
to take consideration some actual illness that.
Absolutely. Again, that's not my area. I'm here for spiritual direction and counseling, not psychological counseling. Okay, so just let's go. I want to go through this whole little section because we want to get through some of this, not because of time, but because of completeness. So though it comes into futility and departs into darkness, again, futility being hevel, and its very name is covered with darkness, though it has never seen or experienced the sun, it is better, and this is the stillborn we were talking about, it is better off than he. Yes, even if the other lived 1,000 years twice over, but never had his fill of enjoyment. For are not both of them bound for the same place? Right? You know who I think of when I think that I just said I was going to do even more, but we'll stop here just to say that. You see very much here when you see the complete metaphor. That's the complete, with the stillborn, that's the complete metaphor. You see when you see it that, right? I actually think of Alexander the Great when I see this, though not a Jewish guy. Just in the sense that he kept conquering and so-called built the biggest empire the world had ever seen, but he never actually ruled over that empire or enjoyed it in any way because he died at the very end of those conquests and it got split up into 3 parts. So I kind of think of him just in that sense of like on this massive scale, being like putting together, spending your whole life of what you have, building something that you never enjoyed because you were constantly struggling in its building.
But for the very rich, that struggle is their enjoyment.
No. Kohelet's saying it's not. And if they would say it was, they'd be wrong. They'd be lying to themselves and therefore to everyone else, but probably it's an honest lie. And by that, I mean, they may well believe it, but it's it's a lie. Kohelet is saying there is no there there. So anyone who makes it their mission, even if they think they're doing the right thing, that's why he's saying, he's not saying they would think it would be better that the stillborn that they meet that they meet that fate. He's saying he thinks it. Because if they're that twisted, if they cannot figure it out, it had been better that they didn't have their shot because they wasted it. Instead, they abused, they did nothing, and they just they never took advantage. They never got it, and that's very frustrating to Kohelet. Maybe because he's one of them and he did get it, but it's very frustrating to him. Now, again, not everyone may get it, but he's saying that if that is, and I'm not sure, because I'm not a billionaire and I never will be, and I'll never know one, I don't think, unless they admit them and they're like Warren Buffett and they live in like a small house and, I'm just like, oh, just kidding, it's a billionaire. But, and one of those billionaires, I don't know if there's, I don't know, we got a bunch in this country theoretically, but if, I don't know any billionaires, but if I did, I imagine that some of them may well believe that the building of everything is indeed the only cause that gives their soul purpose, that gives them fulfillment in life. And if they say that, they would be wrong, according to Kohelet. And because Kohelet says it, and I think he's a pretty smart guy, I'm going to say it too. But they may not say it, but they may not be as smart as Kohelet. And they may be wrong at the end of their life. In fact, a 50-year-old billionaire may end up saying at 75, darn, I really messed up XYZ. I didn't know. I wasn't as smart as Kohelet, but now I'm a little closer and I see how right Kohelet was. You know what I mean? I don't know if Elon Musk should merit to live. I don't know how old he is. He must be in his 50s, I assume. In 20 years, if he should, I pray that everyone should still be alive in 20 years. But should he still be alive in 20 years, he may have a different outlook on certain things than he did when he was younger. But that's Kohelet brings that up. He says we have these different outlooks throughout our lives. We may not be capable of seeing what I can see at every point throughout our lives. And for many people, it only comes at the end, which is a shame, Kohelet says, because obviously we could do things differently with our one shot if we knew everything we should know at the beginning instead of at the end, but that's not how life works.
This isn't exactly his prescription, but we hear so many accounts of people in their last days saying, if I had it to live over again, what I would do would invest myself more lovingly in my relationships. That's what matters.
I mean, many people end up saying that, or they say they wish they were more, they'd done any number of things. But, here's the thing. It's like, I don't know. I'm not going to prescribe. I'm just going to say, I think that Kohelet is right. And I think even though it's a little provocative, I think his point is well taken. For me. Does anyone ever, we're going to move on to this next the next section, but yeah.
Just in passing, It seems to me we went over two kinds of people. The person who works and works and works his whole life, hoping to have a chance to enjoy his riches, and he's diagnosed with cancer and he never gets to. That's one, okay? The second, and I think this is a sicker fellow, the fellow who complains that, well, I made $1 billion, but I can't spend it. I'm going to have to leave it to someone or something. I won't get to enjoy all my money. That's a sicker fellow.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I'm not sure.
The contrast is, to me, someone like a Rockefeller or a Carnegie, late in life,
We're hugely philanthropic.
They became extraordinarily philanthropic.
Yes. Yeah.
And they felt good about that at that point. So they must have transitioned through that period when they recognized they've been doing it all wrong. But, the reason I brought up Buffett a few meetings ago was that he saw it early on. He didn't move from the house. And he said, I enjoy doing this. I enjoy creating this financial giant. But he arranged to have it all given away. And later in life, he chose to knock heads with some of these other multi-billionaires and try to convince them to set up plans to give it all away. So he's closer to Shlomo than
maybe so. Maybe so. Again, I think you do see, especially again, and Kohelet says at the beginning, you usually get to this. Kohelet gets towards the end of your life. You don't gain this kind of wisdom at 22. It just rarely happens. Kohelet did, go figure, but that was divine intervention. Not no one else has that opportunity. Essentially, Kohelet gets given that wisdom by God at a very young age. But most of us have to struggle through life in order to get anywhere close to the kind of wisdom that allows us to see the broader perspective that Kohelet is articulating here.
But did he have this at a young age?
I'm not sure he had the soul stuff, but he had the wisdom that someone would acquire. He didn't have all of this he didn't get Kohelet at 22. I just mean he was given an exorbitant amount of wisdom to become the wisest person on earth at a young age. But this is very much seemingly a wisdom that one, granted, acquires with experience. And so Kohelet is trying to explain, to give the keys to that wisdom to everyone and saying, you might not believe me. Maybe you'll be too young or too stupid or too whatever. But if you take this in, I have the keys to avoiding this soul problem, especially, I guess, towards the end of your life.
So that didn't count in his middle age, salting the food of the Queen of Sheba so that she would drink a lot of wine and he could sleep with her.
I mean, that sounds like, I don't know how to say this on the internet. It sounds like a wisdom of a different kind. I don't know. God gave him all kinds of wisdom. I don't know exactly what he did with all of it. That's not my right. I'm not gonna weigh in on how it was applied. He was a good king, I guess. So it's good to be the king.
I have a question, because in the latter part of his life, he's pursued other gods. That doesn't sound like wisdom.
Well, pursued other gods, went to ceremonies his wives and concubines put on to make them happy. I think we all recognize that in life there are neutral ways of describing things, and there are passionate ways of describing things, on whether for or against.
The rabbinic understanding, he didn't become one of those.
No, he wasn't an idolater. No, the rabbinic understanding is he was not an idolater.
Makes me feel better.
Though he certainly, I would say he allowed for more idolatry than I would have been comfortable with.
I think he allowed Asheroth poles.
I'd have been the only Reform rabbi he'd have been upset with as high priest. Everyone else would have been fine with it probably, but I would have been probably pretty upset. In any event, yeah. Okay. Let's move to verse 7, because we're not yet done with our story. We'll go a couple of verses and right. So all of a person's, and this is all going to be very, right, we're going to be, some of this is Proverbs. So this especially, this is looking at Proverbs 16:26. We want to look at, I'm going to pull up in another. The appetite of laborers labors for them, because their hunger forces them on. And this is referencing that, saying, all of a person's earning is for the mouth, but for sating oneself is what that means. Yet the gullet, the soul, really, v'gam hanefesh, lo timaleh. But the soul is not filled. What advantage, then, have the wise over the foolish? What advantage have paupers who know how to get on in life? Is the feasting of the eyes more important than the pursuit of desire? That too is Hevel, and the pursuit of wind, right?
Both are Hevel, both the feasting of the eyes and the pursuit.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. It's the desire that you're concerned about.
Right. So even though basic reality, I don't know exactly how to explain this, even though the basics of understanding are preferable to the allowing of your desires to motivate your quest through life, that too is Hevel. They're both Hevel. It's all Hevel. But the first one is actually better than the second. So technically, he's saying it would be better to be like a guy who just, a day laborer who just makes enough to get by and has beers with his friends on the weekend than it would be to be a billionaire who was constantly, who craved only increasing his net wealth. It's an interesting moral prescription. So whatever happens, it was designated long ago, and it was known that it would happen. As for humanity, they cannot contend with the one who is stronger than they are. It's interesting. It's like, in some ways, it's almost against the great man of history idea that, the individuals shape history, but I'm not sure that's exactly what it means. Just that if God has a plan or there's an idea or an endpoint, you're not going to be able to influence that. Certain bullet points are set, I guess, is part of that. Often, much talk, right? Dvarim harbe marbim havel, right? So a lot of words results in a lot of hevel. How does it benefit a person, right? And in this case, it's not words. It's Steinsaltz is saying it actually means matters, because dvarim can mean things or event. It's a word that can mean a lot of different things. It has a pretty wide semantic range, and so here there are many matters in the world. We know that, and because of all of these different matters, we know there is a lot of it increases hevel. In the world. The comment here is the richer a person grows, the more he becomes preoccupied with worthless matters. And one who lives confronted with an overabundance of worthless matters will inevitably encounter more hevel. And hevel is bad for the soul. So what good is for that, right? Who can possibly know what is best for people to do in life? The few days of this fleeting life, for who can tell what the future holds for them under the sun? So this whole chapter has been what?
The vicissitudes of Hevel.
In a way, sure.
There's a saying, there are two joys in a boat owner's life: when he gets the boat and when he sells it.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a pain in the head.
Sure.
I'm having a double debate with him. On the one hand, I know that he's already given an answer. Be satisfied with what you have and enjoy what you have. And I certainly can buy into that. But I argue with him on two things that he said in this one paragraph, if I can. Okay, just quote it. When he says, his only thought is to is his gullet, or his mouth, his throat, oh, here it is. All of man's earning is for the sake of his mouth, yet his gullet is not satisfied. I disagree with that. I understand you're saying his gullet means his soul.
That's the word in Hebrew.
Okay, yeah.
The gum and
nefesh, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think all of man's earning is for his mouth. And before I continue, I want to add to that the second sentence. Who can possibly know what is best for a man to do in his life? That's what life is about. I think, trying to figure out what am I supposed to do with my life and how do I do it? Now, he's already given an answer. Be satisfied with what you have and enjoy it. And yes,
avoid the rat race.
Avoid the rat race, yes. But I also think a man should be saying, it isn't just about me and feeding my desires. I have children. There's a world around me. Part of my purpose in life is to make this world better. And that's the kind of wisdom that comes with aging and maturing.
Well, Shlomo had a very poor example for a father, and I'm not sure he was a great one. But I don't think I'm saying that to preface what I'm about to say. I don't know how much he would agree. Look, I'm certain he would agree that up until you get them out of the house, your kids are your responsibility to rear appropriately and make sure they're taken care of. I'm not sure he would think about building family legacy the way you're describing, the way we do in America. I'm not sure he's saying that is good. I'm not sure he's saying, or even if it is good, it's one among many goods that you can choose as a benevolent pursuit.
Okay.
Which perhaps he'd be fine with, so long as it was a secondary goal to the buffeting of your soul that you're supposed to be doing, because your soul is here, right? This is kind of a metaphysical lingering in the back of what he's talking about. Kind of, he says, your soul is down here for a certain amount of time. It's on earth for a certain amount of time. You're going to die. And then what? We don't know. But whatever happens to that soul, he seems very concerned with its health, with its stability. And I think that's the primary that he wants you focused on. That is what life's purpose ought to be about, keeping satisfied. And when you put any other goal as the ultimate goal, everything else is hevel. So, because he would say to you, you're like, oh, build a family legacy, build that money so that your kids can have. He said back in the beginning, you're going to do that and your kid's going to be an idiot and they're going to lose it all. Oops, hevel. Just so you know, he's going to say, no, I'm telling you, he's going to say, well, what did you do that for? No, he's going to come to you in the afterlife when you're sitting there watching it happen and going, how did this happen? But I spent so much time and meticulously, all those extra hours I spent going over my estate plan instead of going to the beach with my kids and whatnot. And now they lost it all. What the? And Kohelet, Shlomo HaMelech is going to come up to you and he's going to have a beard and a robe and all that. And he's going to say,
what was it for?
Good hevel, good job. What a hevel you did.
And my answer to him is going to be, okay, my kid was a shlomel.
Okay, sure. A shemazel at least.
He threw
I like better.
He threw it all
Luckless.
away. But I did what I was supposed to do. I did what was good for my soul. I tried to take care of them.
I mean, there is the chance he comes back at you and says, did you do what was good for your soul? Was that the right thing to do? Or was it hevel? I'm just saying, I don't think Shlomo HaMelech's going to give up on the book that easily. But I'm not saying it's a wrong thing to do. Certainly I am not. I hope everyone doesn't go out and spend all their money. In fact, I think, not to be too prescriptive, but people should probably give away more of their money to the next generation so they can, develop their own wealth for their children and pay for things and buy homes and things like that, rather than going on, blowing it out and buying. I was just in South Florida just to rant about society. I was just in South Florida, and it's amazing between Boynton and West Palm. The average age of people who live there must be 65, or higher. And the number of Porsches and Jaguars and Range Rovers, and now look, every one of these people might be multi-billionaires, and I'm just a stupid fool who isn't rich. And all of that is totally possible. The last part's definitely true. Not the stupid fool, hopefully, but the not rich part. But it seems to me that some people have decided if they have a lot of money left at the end, they're going to blow it out rather than, pass it on. And I'm not saying that they should do that. I'm not saying that's what Kohelet is saying. Just that should be a secondary goal and not the primary. If in the course of doing what you're supposed to do, you happen to also make that possible, I doubt anyone could have a problem with it. It just should be a secondary goal. Yeah.
I've read Kohelet several times, and I don't see where he says, give thanks to God for all you've gotten, or enjoy the Lord's blessing. You're supposed to enjoy what you've got. So
for this, we have to interpret what Kohelet means by, what is good, right?
Okay.
He says it's good for it's good for your soul. What does that mean? What does it mean to do the right thing? The right thing isn't just to enjoy what you have. It's to enjoy what you have and do mitzvot and do good things in the world. It's both of those things.
What about feeling thanks to God for what you have?
Part of doing good is giving thanks to God. So you're supposed to, that's wrapped into, if you're doing the right thing for your soul, you're already doing that through doing good things in the world, which is good for your soul. So it's not that God's not being mentioned. It's just Kohelet is so far in the wisdom camp that he's like, that's step one of wisdom, understanding that what's good is to do the things God wants you to do, including praying and being praiseful of God.
He's up there.
I'm just saying we're all way below Kohelet, but this is the problem, is he's not laying out every step of his thinking.
Okay.
But I'm just letting you know, when he says you should do what is good, that's what he means. Is not just he does mean to enjoy the things you have with the people you're with, but he also means, and you should all together be, singing praises to God on festivals and doing the observing things and that kind of thing.
I was just gonna say before you said that, the one thing that I've noticed is I feel like I have plenty and I have gratitude.
Yeah.
And those are the days that I feel satiated. Is that the word?
Satiated, yeah.
When I'm grateful.
Fulfilled is a good word too. Yes, absolutely. I definitely think humility and being able to be grateful. Humility and gratitude are superpowers for grounding oneself. And that has mental health effects, positive effects. That has physiological, I believe, through its mental health effects, has impact on your body. I believe that those who are humble and grateful live longer. I believe that they enjoy more of the world. And I believe that, in a way, is part of the wisdom that Kohelet is trying. He doesn't use those words for it exactly, but I think that is part of the wisdom he is trying to impart. Now, again, that doesn't apply to everything, because nobody knows how many days he's got. It's not theodicy. It's not that those who are in alignment with God live long, and that's not what I'm saying. Perfectly nice, grateful, God-fearing people die at 25, and God forbid, it sucks, but it happens. And plenty of mean old cusses live to be 100. I'm not saying this is theodicy. I'm just saying I believe in general, on the aggregate, you see these benefits in those who are humble and grateful.
It's implied then, but one thing one could do is get joy out of thanking God. I mean, there's plenty of psalms that do that, and a good deal of music. And it doesn't, of course, say that. And the rabbinic things that's implied is what you're saying, from what I can tell, that we are giving thanks by doing that thing.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I agree with you.
Well, in fact, this just caught my eye. This is back in chapter 5. Also, whenever a man is given riches and property by God, and is also permitted by him to enjoy them, and to take his portion and get pleasure for his gains, that is a gift of God.
Right.
Okay.
He's trying to say you don't have to live as a pauper to be a good person. In that line, I believe he's trying to say there's no expectation that if you're Warren Buffett, who we were just talking about, you can be Warren Buffett and live in a modest middle-class house that you lived in for 50 years, but you have your plane and stuff. I mean, but like you can
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not like he's a modest guy. I'm not trying to say he's totally, but like you can choose to be modest or not, and that's not relevant to whether you're doing the right things for your soul. If in the course of what you're doing, okay, this is a better example. I'll say this for everyone here. I'm a rabbi. I don't do terribly for myself, and thankfully my wife is a doctor. I drive a Tesla, a pretty decently nice electric car. I could choose to just drive a $10,000 car, buy a used old beater or whatever, and be satisfied with that, right? That would be more humble. But God doesn't say you have to live. There are no vows of poverty for us. We don't believe in that necessarily, right? Right. There's no idea that to be a good person, you have to give up you have to give up everything, right? Or you have to even live at some Spartan minimalist standard in order to prove your virtue or your soul's accordance with God. It's just not, we don't believe that. That's why Kohelet is saying there, if what you do, now that's me, that's how much I make. If you're a doctor and you make, I don't know, a bunch of money doing whatever doctors, wherever, and you're doing all that, that's great. Then you should enjoy to that level. That's fine. Yeah.
But at whatever level you're enjoying, you should be grateful that God has given you this.
Right.
Right, exactly. You should be grateful, and you should be grateful, and you should use it. You just shouldn't make it the center of that. Right? He's saying you can be a rich guy or a poor guy and not make how much you have the center of everything. And I think that's an important message. Okay, let's see. We're going to try and make a play at chapter 7, since we're barely an hour in. Not even. This first line, I just love this line. Here we got 2 notes here. I just want to see. We're going to get some practical maxims, right? So this is like a mini Proverbs we're going to get here. Just some good lines. A good name is better than fragrant oil, and the day of death than the day of birth. It's better, I think he means. The day of death is better than the day of one's birth. What does that mean? Why is a good name better than fragrant oil?
You can buy fragrant oil. You can't buy a good name. You have to live that way.
That's a good one. That's true. I like that.
You mentioned you don't get tickets. I've been stopped, if you will, and they say, you work for the VA, you guys did a good job with my dad. Here's a warning. I've never gotten a ticket. That's a good name.
I don't know who get that. That is true. That's a good name. That's certainly good. Another suggestion is perhaps fragrant oil can only be redeemed, enjoyed. The result of it can only be enjoyed by the people around you.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But if you have a good name, everyone might have heard of you. And it goes much, much further than fragrant oil.
Your reputation makes...
Right, exactly. Your reputation endures much more than making yourself smell nice.
I agree.
I also like the idea, I really like the idea that you can't buy a good name. That's a good one too. And of course, it says the day of death is better or than the day of
I
birth.
don't understand that.
So, does anyone want to fathom see what Kohelet is going after here?
I cheated and I looked at.
Okay, you looked at the commentary. What does it say?
That you were always at risk of losing your good name until you die. So the idea is that you carry your good name with you until
You could lose it, right?
You could
right. If you work all your life at developing a Shem Tov,
Yeah.
Only to ruin it because you were Bernie Madoff,
Okay, so that's it.
right? Bernie Madoff's a great example, right? Jeffrey Epstein's another one you could use. Where well, I mean, he lost his probably a while ago, but up until like 1996 at least or something, he could claim to have a good name. But then you could lose it before you die. It's you could I mean, at least publicly he could claim to, right? So and Bernie Madoff the same thing. Everyone gave him awards and stuff, said he was this great doing great things for everybody in his investing practice, only to turn out he was a scammer. But eventually it catches up to you, is essentially what he's saying. So the day of death is good in that way because it solidifies your name. And it's better than the day of birth because in the day of birth, we don't know what you might do. You don't have any name. You're nobody.
But in the day of birth, there's a lot of potential to change and grow. We don't know what happens.
He's much more. That's interesting, right? Unlike our current culture, which I understand why, and it's probably for the best. But this is much. He's almost advocating in a way for a more completionist, ending-focused culture, as opposed to a potential-based, beginning-based culture.
That's capitalism.
Maybe so, but in any event, we very much, are very like, ooh, someone who's just born, they could be anything. He's probably saying it's probably healthier to focus on legacy at the end than potential at the beginning. Is what that
He decides one's better than the other is beyond me.
But having a good name, earning a good name, suggests again that there is something that one should be doing in one's life.
Right, of course, he does believe there's something that there are certain things we should be doing and certain things that we should avoid. Should we move on to the next one? Okay. It is better. We're going through the list. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For that is the end of every mortal, and the living should take it to heart.
Doesn't sound like you can enjoy feasting in that one, just why couldn't
not that you shouldn't enjoy feasting when you're there, but it's better for a person to go to a house of mourning, not better for a person to die. In this case, he's specifically not saying that. He's saying it's better for if you had to go to one. He thinks it's better that you go to a Shiva minyan than to go to a feast, which is actually interesting because it runs counter to the rabbi's advice on when a funeral procession and a wedding reception meet at a crossroads in a town. The bridal reception goes first. The wedding reception goes first. So as we allow life to take precedence in that moment. But this is a nice inversion of that, where he's saying, okay, feasting has its moment. I'm not saying he would disagree with the rabbis in that moment. But what he's saying for this, he's just saying in general, it is better for your soul to go. Why is that? Since he wouldn't disagree with the rabbis, but he says this. What could be the reason?
Irv pointed out that the three of us lost our wives.
We've been into
I feel acutely into that process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very clearly beyond the grief and the loss and the sadness. There's also a reminder, this is where you're going to end up. How are you living your life?
Yes. That is essentially what he means by, and the living should take it to heart, or that it should go into, he should take it into his heart. I like how the Hebrew idiom thousands of years later still kind of works with the English idiom. We have the idiom take it to heart, meaning internalize it,
Yes.
not literally put it inside of your flesh heart, your muscle. And Hebrew has the same yitain el libo, that he should take it into his heart. In kind of still meaning that kind of,
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
We're leaving,
okay,
but the guys need to be here till 3, so don't set the alarm.
got it, understood, thank you.
Okay. I take it somewhat differently. I see going to a house of mourning as comforting others, as opposed to just frivolously saying party time.
I see what you're saying. Here's why I think it goes in that direction, because it says, for that is the end of so recognizing the end of life, and the living should take that to heart. I think what's intended here is to take the idea that life ends to heart, and to allow it, even if it's uncomfortable, to orient you, to change you, so that you're focused on what you're doing with your life, and making sure it's something that keeps in mind all of the hevels that he's warning you about. Because if you keep in mind our end, you can more appropriately prioritize the mission of life. I think yours is a nice interpretation, but I think because of the specificity here, if you were just dealing with the first part of the line, I could totally agree with your interpretation. Here, I think it's specifically saying that going to a house of mourning leads one to think about one's life and what one's doing, and whether they're making of their life what they wanted to. Whereas going to a house of feasting doesn't do that. You just enjoy yourself, which you should enjoy yourself in your life. But you don't just enjoy yourself, because remember, he said just living a life of frivolity is hevel. So if you're doing that, you're failing to orient your life towards the purposes that you also have to do, which isn't just, this is why I say doing like the purpose of good, of doing and enjoying life isn't just frivolity, isn't just barbecues. Barbecues are an important part of, with your friends and family, are a part of life, an important part of life, but they're not everything. There's also the part of life that's serving God. That means purpose. That means doing doing things that are in accordance with God's mitzvot. All of these things are part of the intended primary purpose that we're supposed to be aiming at. And that's what this second verse means, I would say.
There was a Jew who didn't practice Judaism named Sigmund Freud, who said what we feel as ourselves is the result of the people we've loved and lost. And when you're mourning, go to a house of mourning, you remember the people you've loved and lost, and it enriches gives more depth to your personality. That's a statement by Sigmund I tend to agree with.
I mean, I think generally that's correct.
At your stage, Lauren, it takes a while, but Marge been dead 5 years.
Grief is also
like forever.
Yeah, grief is also it's one of those, it's an extremely difficult. Again, this advice is not about the mourner, right? It's not talking to someone who's mourning. It's not that person they can't go to the feasting, they're not allowed to go as a mourner. They're not allowed to go to plays or music events or weddings, right? They're a mourner. They're not supposed to do those things anyway. This is about you're just a townsman. It's not you. It's not you mourning. It's not you hosting the feast.
Right.
You're just going. It is better to go to the house of mourning.
But it does remind you of the persons you've loved and lost, and reaffirm the depth that you have.
It says feasting, but it's mishteh, so it's like the house of drinking. It's like going to the bar. It says.
Well, I talk about.
I'm just saying, beit mishteh is like, I would call that the bar, but whatever, you can call it a house of feasting.
Thinking about an Irish funeral.
Oh, like an Irish wake, yeah,
right,
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is jubilant and jokey and positive.
Exactly.
Celebration of life.
That's not a bad thing.
Well,
different cultures do it differently, for sure. They have different feelings around that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. The Irish have their culture and we have ours. I prefer the way the Jews do more than the way the Irish do it myself. But I can see why the Irish might. I can see the positive to it. I just think on the whole, ours is a more reflective and also expedient way to move a person through the mourning process and return them to the fullness of life, which Kohelet would agree is the purpose of mourning, is to help one appropriately mourn, but also to psychologically move them from a narrow, dark place back to life, which is the whole purpose of mourning. If you mourn forever, if you're in that, then you didn't really, you never really mourned. You just lived in it for the rest of your life, and that's not what God wants, even if it feels empathetic in some way. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is a short one. Tov kaas mishchok. Anger or vexation, my translation says, but anger is a better one, I think. But vexation is fun. Anger is better than laughter, right? Or vexation is better than revelry. For though the face may be sad, the heart may be glad. I don't like that translation. I like Steinsaltz's better. It says, for from a harsh visage, from a harsh face, the heart may benefit.
Might clarify that, really.
Here's a good way to say it. If I had a assistant rabbi, we'll call him Rabbi Plony, or her, who cares? Rabbi Plonit. And they were bad at their job. I'm not going to go into all the ways they could be. It's a metaphor. It doesn't matter. They're bad at their job. Would it be better for me to rebuke them or for me to laugh along and say, haha, well, you know, people do things differently? What he's saying about anger being better than laughter, again, that's why I don't like for though the face be sad, the heart may be glad. It's not even what it ki veroa panim, though the face may have a dark, evil, it may be a bad face that's being presented. Itav, is it itav or itav lev? The heart may be from tov, may be gladdened, will be improved, will be lifted, will be gladdened. Lifted is not the word. So what that means is that if there's something wrong, better to show it than sweep it under the rug. A person can improve through correction.
Mm-hmm.
A person will never improve if they are not corrected, right? This is a condemnation of every bad king you've ever read in life and in fiction. Essentially, that doesn't rebuke his courtiers who abuse the people and cheat everyone. And it's the same in business today. If you have underlings who are your bros, but they abuse people, it could be true in politics. If you have political allies who do bad things and you refuse to correct them, you're not doing anyone any favors.
No.
That's what he's saying. So sometimes anger is better than laughter. Sometimes you got to be sometimes you got to be tough, is what he's saying, right? It's better for that. Not that in every instance of life it's better. He's not saying that every moment of your life you should be angry rather than laughing. He's saying that there are moments that call for righteous, that call for being a little tough, being a tough guy.
Judgment is appropriate at times.
Right, exactly.
I can't quote it, but there's another place in the Torah where it says if you see your neighbor doing wrong, you have to say something to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right. Rebuke your neighbor.
Right.
Right. The Torah says, surely you shall rebuke your neighbor. It is on us to, if we see someone doing the wrong thing. By the way, this is kind of why, so you won't get rebuked, is why Maridayin is such an important such an important fence for the rabbis of not doing things that would appear to be improper, because we don't want to force people to have to. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for you to be rebuked. It's uncomfortable for them to rebuke you. But they're supposed to. So don't do things that would make you get rebuked. And certainly, this is where Maritain comes in. Don't do things that would cause someone to rebuke you when you shouldn't be rebuked.
Right.
Just because you're doing the right thing, but you look like you're doing the wrong thing, that means you're doing the wrong thing, because you might cause someone to rebuke you, and then they'd be wrong, and you would have caused their embarrassment.
That's true.
Wow.
Right. So you see?
So appearances.
And never cause embarrassment. Causing embarrassment is a great, great sin.
So appearances are important.
To the rabbis, certainly very
Well,
much
the
so.
rest of us.
It's why we can't have chicken. No, we can eat chicken. We just can't have, it's meat. And the reason it's meat, and among many things, the reason they are what they are, is just to preserve, so we don't, so that no one might make the mistake of looking and thinking wrong. Just better for it to be classified stringently than for us to have to check people, and better. I don't think so, but the rabbis think it's better.
Can I argue with you philosophically a little?
As long as it's not about chicken. Sure, go ahead.
I understand what you just said, and it's nice.
Oh,
In
good.
a way. But that also means that in a way you live your life worrying about what others might think instead of doing what you know to be right.
Not wrong. Not wrong.
Yeah.
You do essentially spend your life
Worrying.
now again, you're not supposed to, because if you're doing the right thing, you're doing the right thing within the fences. And if everyone's doing the right thing within the fences, then technically nobody has to check anybody else, right? You'll see this actually, part of why you'll see you can get pre-checked. There's a rule for if you buy produce at a regular grocery store, for how you check the produce for bugs and things, because that would make it not kosher. But especially in very Jewish areas and in Israel, you can get pre-checked, already badakt, already checked. I'm anglicizing the word for checking, but you can get pre-checked by by rabbinic supervision stuff, and then you don't have to do the checking.
Cool.
Right? They made it easy on you, as long as you live within their box. If you follow their kashrut supervision and you buy their specific pre-check things and you believe that they did the work. By the way, there's always posts. The internet, if they ever see this, if there are any Orthodoxy watching, I don't know if they're going to flame me or agree with me. Just kidding. The comments are off, so they can't do either. But it's true. People are always posting about finding bugs in that stuff.
Yeah.
But they're pre-checked, so you don't have to check. But you might want to.
What do we do?
If you agree with the fences.
What do we do when we live in Topeka and want to be one?
You check. No, that's the thing. You'd have to check every produce you get. You'd have to go through the process of checking for bugs and making sure that there weren't any. That the seeds weren't bugs, that the folds of your whatever don't have, you artichoke, it's really hard on some of them. But you'd have to, lettuce, you'd have to, wash through and check the leaves of lettuce. Yeah, you got to do it. If you live in Kansas City, you probably still have to. I don't know if their supermarkets carry this kind of thing, but in certain big areas with kosher supermarkets, then yeah, you'd usually find some version of this.
Do you think it's important to check the produce?
I really doubt it. Well, no, so here's the thing. Reformed Jews who keep kosher, and there are some, I'm one of them, they might. I don't know. I haven't done a study. Most Reformed Jews don't keep traditional laws of kashrut, so they obviously wouldn't. If you're not following the traditional laws of kashrut, why would you bother to check your produce for anything? It's like, so your question is, I take it well, but at the same time, like, if they're keeping kosher, they very well may. If they're like most Reformed Jews and not keeping kosher, then they probably don't. But they don't do any. They're going to eat meat. They're not going to be checking anything because they're not going to be checking.
Sure.
They're going to buy whatever they're going to. They're going to bring not. They're going to store it separately. They're not going to separate dishes. They're not going to do any of the traditional halachot around kashrut. So, and maybe they will one day, but they might not today. Anyway, I'm not saying this to critique them. I'm just saying this is the movement we're in.
I didn't even know that was required.
Oh, there's many things required. You know about the toilet paper, right?
No,
Before Shabbos, you got to pre-rip it.
really?
Ripping is forbidden, is one of the melachot that's forbidden.
Rip it. Oh, yeah.
Ripping is, you're forbidden from ripping. It's melacha. It's a forbidden action on Shabbat. So if you have a toilet paper roll that is where it has the perforated lines, you have to pre-rip each of the sheets of toilet paper and leave them on a stack so that people can grab them as they need them throughout Shabbos. I'm not saying that I don't begrudge them, and this is not mockery. I'm just saying if you're trying not to do the melachot, you got to do these things. It's why the crock pot is the best ever invention in the history of Judaism. Cholent has never been as hot as when crock pot was invented. It's why the timer that turns lights on and off is the best invention in the history of the world. I'm sure with smart homes, Orthodox people can set it to be like exactly 18 minutes before, before candle lighting, boom, they go off, and exactly 18 minutes after sunset, boom, they go on. I'm sure it can be perfect now. You can get it absolute. In the old days, you just had to kind of get, you had the dial thing and you had to guess. I'm not saying any of this to denigrate them or to denigrate Reform Jews by saying they don't. Halacha is not the be-all and end-all of Judaism, which I must remind you, I guess, because Chabad says it is. Because other people say it is, and we just give up that. We just go, well, I guess it must be. Because they say so, but I would say we get a voice in that too. Halacha is important. It should be considered, and it should be updated where appropriate, and it's not binding. It's halacha means the way, the path. It's not haderach, it's not the path, but it's walking. Halacha means we're walking a path. We're walking a middle path somewhere. I call it Maimonides derech be'emtza. And hold on, I'm just going to see if somebody yelled at me. No, nobody yelled at me. Sometimes they do. You never know. Okay. Sorry. Where were we? Okay. I love all the Orthodox Jews and all the Reformed Jews, and we're all Jews in the end, and we should all remember that, especially as the world has contempt for us all.
I agree with that totally.
So in any event, okay, I got 12 minutes. The wise are drawn to a house of mourning, and the foolish to a beit simcha. Here it says beveit simcha, a house of merrymaking or a house of joy, a house of rejoicing. And this is kind of the same idea, right? The wise often think about death, and they're constantly thinking about the future and the destiny of people and all these things. And so the wise are drawn to a house of mourning, and the foolish people who don't think about any of those metaphysical issues, they'd rather just be somewhere where there's flowing wine, right, and beer. We get that. Here's another good one. It is better to listen to the reproof of someone wise than to listen to the praise of fools, right? Better to listen to the rebuke of the wise, even though that sucks and it feels bad. If somebody smarter than me, and it happens, calls me out on the internet or something and says you're being a dummy, that hurts. But there's potential for growth there. If there's just a kernel of truth in the criticism, you can internalize that and turn it to positive. You can grow from that criticism, which is the point of rebuke, is to spur growth. It's why when you rebuke someone, there are rules for it in Judaism. We said before rebuke is good, but rebuke is supposed to be offered in private. You're supposed to ask first whether they're open to taking rebuke. There are all kinds of rules about offering rebuke. You don't just walk up to someone in public and say, hey, idiot, way to go on that stupid thing you did the other. That's not rebuke. That's embarrassing someone in public. You're the sinner. In that instance, you're not doing the good rebuke. There is a way to do rebuke, and if you do it right, it's one of the best things you can do. Because if you do it right, you can help reorient somebody, which is Kohelet would agree is one of the best things you can do. And that's what he's saying is, listening to the praise of fools. Okay, but what do fools know? Right? They're going to tell you whatever, but it's not going to it's not, nothing will happen from that. No growth will occur. And you'll, in the end, you end up behind. For the levity of the fool is like the crackling of nettles under a kettle, but that too is illusory. Right? He's just saying it's right. It's Hevel. It's Havel. It keeps going back and forth between Havel and Hevel, but it's the same thing. So he's saying that's Hevel, because it's like, oh, they really like you, and they say you're so great, and all the things you do are so great, and you surrounded yourself with yes men. But who cares, right? He's like, there's no truth in that. So it's just fools, and you don't gain anything from that. And there's real gain and there's fake gain. And he's really concerned about you getting real gain in life and not fake gain. Because fake gain is Hevel and real gain is Tov. And we want to see if we can't increase the good in our life and reduce the Hevel.
Mm-hmm.
It's the constant theme we keep going back to with him. Because, sorry, just to finish this line, it says, for cheating may rob the wise of reason and destroy the prudence of the cautious. So, right, if these stupid people are exploiting, it says here cheating. I get exploitation, I think, is a good translation here. Or poisoning them almost with like getting them from the inside. Will rob the wise of reason. I actually like that. There will take away the wisdom of the wise, and destroy the gift of the heart, is what it literally says. Et lev matana. But here, the gift of the heart is the prudence of the cautious. We're being given to understand, right? Because that's the kind of thing that comes from listening to fools, right? Okay, sorry, Lauren, you had something you wanted to say.
Just a tradition in medicine that I am and was very proud of is that of consultation, where essentially you say, I don't think I'm an expert in this field at all. I owe it to my patient to go to one and be sure that I'm guided to do the right thing.
Absolutely. That's a great thing. Rabbis do very similar things, by the way. I'm sure a lot of these kind of professions do this kind of thing. It's a lot of times where we'll weigh in or speak to some other rabbis to get advice, both on matters of detail and matters of conscience. And so no, I see that. I definitely agree. Any other thoughts? So this is a long chapter and we are not going to get through it. What I'm going to do is ask you all to bookmark verse 8, and say we're going to pick up there when we resume next week.
It does read like Proverbs,
Right, the whole chapter is is a chapter that's basically
some Proverbs each day, and this sound, I read that one earlier.
Well, and again, as we discussed, a couple of them are like in verse, right? A couple of them are not quite in verse, but they're like, they touch on something extra that he didn't say in Proverbs. The very beginning, we started with something that was like a takeoff of a line.
Shlomo also wrote Proverbs.
Yes, of course. We certainly believe that Shlomo HaMelech, so wise, wrote Proverbs as well. Okay, we're going to thank everyone for coming online. Once again, it's wonderful to have